All right, so here's the deal. I was supposed to have an interview earlier today. It got rescheduled. I was feeling kind of down. I was like, what the heck am I going to talk about on Locked On Kraken today? So I went about my business, did some work, went to see a relative in the hospital, came back home, ready to record, and guess what showed up? This and more on today's episode of Locked on Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
That's right, Kraken family. It is Erica Lindsay Ayala, your host of Locked on Kraken, back again. And we are going to get into this puppy today on Locked on Kraken. That's coming up. So I'm going to set it to the side there. We'll talk about it. But as I mentioned, we had a guest rescheduled, but no big deal. We're going to still talk about that. I told you we have conversations about the Charlotte Checkers coming up. We have another Goodreads that will come up in about a week or two. I'm not going to tell you who the author is. I'll leave you on your toes for that one. But for today's show, got my rundown over here. I want to give you a tease of a conversation that I had. I had such a great time on These Canadian Lads podcast. I can't say enough about the guys. We just had a good time. So I'm going to show that to you. We talked about everything from how I got into covering hockey and really sports in general. I've talked about that before, so I'm not going to play that clip. I will play a clip of I was asked about my thoughts about Ronny Francis. So I'll tell a fun story that had the guys cracking up, and a lot more about the Seattle Kraken, of course, and a little bit about Edmonton and learning about them. We also talked on that podcast, and I'll leave the link in the show notes so you can listen and watch the whole thing. They're on YouTube as well as anywhere you get podcasts. So I'll leave all those links for you. But we also talked about the broadcast teams. So ESPN's broadcast team, TNT's broadcast team. You know, I talked about that this week. I'm not really feeling the Barstool connection. I also heard the guys over on Locked On NHL talk about it. They had a slightly different opinion of Bissonnette in particular, which I thought was interesting. But I got to say, I'm not buying it. But as always, want to make sure you're listening to Locked On NHL, and also Locked On Penguins talked about it a little bit. But so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the national TV schedule, though. So TNT and ESPN, or the Disney networks, they announced the hockey games that they're going to play on their national broadcast. So, of course, I have the list of Seattle games that will be on the national broadcast. And then, of course, we'll get into the Kraken jersey. But I want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by RockAuto.com. Reliably low prices, amazing selection, all the parts your car will ever need. Go to RockAuto.com and type in Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box. So we'll talk certainly more about rockauto.com. I already mentioned Locked On NHL. Again, I don't always agree with all of the hosts, but definitely a worthwhile conversation. They also talk about the NWHL name change to the Premier Hockey Federation. In case you missed it, we had PHF Commissioner Ty Taminia on the show. The connection was a little bit spotty. You probably heard that if you listened to the episode, so I didn't put that one up on YouTube, but I will have some video in the archive from my great conversation with Ty Taminia, and she has already invited herself back to Locked on Kraken, so we're definitely going to have to do that. Another thing that I want to give you in this top segment is that we see from some of the national reporters and particularly beat writers. So I saw that Marissa and Jemmy, we see Ryan S. Clark. Those folks are at Seattle Kraken Media Day happening today. It's fantastic. We're also starting to see some goalie setups. I know I've mentioned Sound of Hockey before. I'm sure Darren in particular is going to have fun breaking that all down. So I'll leave that to the experts as far as that is concerned. We also see that the Seattle Kraken, we talked about this on Happy Jersey Day, the 15th. So that was Wednesday, yesterday, I guess. The days are all blurred. Anyway, so at some point this week, the Seattle Kraken released their jerseys for sale official to the public. Again, we're going to get into it's upside down. We're going to get into my jersey. I was able to order this because of my membership to The Depths. So I was able to get this one. I talked about on a podcast, I think this week, that I did not get any player's name or my own personal name on this jersey. I also got it a little bigger than I probably would usually. So we'll see how the heck it actually fits, if it fits. Paid a lot of money for this, so I freaking hope it fits. I just figured I'll wear a hoodie underneath. But if it's too long now, that's a whole different situation. I have to get someone who knows how to sew to fix that one for me. But all right, so we see that the Seattle Kraken is having their media day. I mentioned that Marissa and Jemmy, Ryan S. Clark, if you're not already following them. Marissa's been on the pod before she was official for the Seattle Times, so we're gonna have to have her back. Ryan S. Clark, I talk about him all the time, and happy Hispanic History Month. Vamos! Dale! Let's go. If you didn't know, the S in Ryan S. Clark stands for Soto. And if you didn't know, the L in Erica L. Ayala stands for Lindsay. Anyway, we are both Latinos covering not only hockey, but the Seattle Kraken. So happy Hispanic History Month to you, Ryan S. Clark, and to me as well. They, in addition to there being media day, we also see that the Seattle Kraken have dished out some of these sweet threads to some local Seattle athletes. Sue Bird with Bird 10 on the back of her jersey. We saw that she posted a few players on the Seahawks. So Jersey Day is the day that just keeps on giving it. So it's a whole week celebration. And I mentioned that Kraken community Iceplex has been having open skates. So that's something exciting. We see lines around the bend to get the things that I really liked is that we saw that John Forsland, Everett Fitzhugh, and JT Brown were out there conversing. I want to make sure we're still connected here. They were out there conversing. Hold on. Just want to make sure my audio is still working here. All right. Seems to be good. I've had some connectivity issues with my microphone. Anyway, they were out there conversing with the crowd as they were buying their Kraken gear. So you'll love to see it. They anticipated lines. They had some of their personnel there to meet and greet, take photos. So it's just a jolly good time, if you will. But coming up next on Locked on Kraken, I am going to get into the media schedule. So I wrote down the dates for TNT and, of course, ESPN and ESPN Plus, etc. So we're going to go over all of that. And I'm going to get into my Kraken jersey. This will be the last week that we are on our off season. If I'm not mistaken, by next week already, we're going full-time, 5 days a week again. As the Locked on Kraken show, we started the first month 5 days a week. Then we dropped down to our off season. And now we ramp it back up again. And by next week, I will be in Seattle getting ready to cover training camp. So lots coming up on Locked on Kraken. But in the meantime, in between time, as I promised, let's talk about my favorite family-owned business. And of course, that is Rock rockauto.com. We know that there's so many cars, and not even to mention all the different hybrids that we have now. And it's almost impossible to find everything that you need in your average brick and mortar store. That's why our good friends at rockauto.com, who have been serving auto parts customers online for 20 years, are the folks to know. Everything is right there, everything from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet on their online catalog. And the prices are always reliably low and the same for the do-it-yourselfer as they are for your, automotive professional. So go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your make and your model. And type locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. That's amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And also want to tell you, of course, about DirecTV Stream. Similarly to rockauto.com, instead of brick and mortar stores, now we're talking all of these different streaming options. We're going to talk in just a little bit about Hulu and ESPN Plus and why we're going to need that for hockey. But then, of course, if you want to watch the Seattle Kraken, you've got Root Sports and you've got Fubo, not Fubu. Fubo. And there are just so many different options. How do you keep it all together? Well, DirecTV Stream is going to help you get your TV together. And that is because this is one place for your live TV, your on-demand favorites, and it's everything like never before. So you can watch your sports, your movies, your shows, everything all in one place. No more juggling remotes, no more all these different passwords and shared accounts with family and, your cousin's girlfriend's dog's walker twice removed or whatever. Everything, you can just get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more about DirecTV Stream by heading over to directtv.com. Yep, that's directtv.com. And remember, a compatible device is required and content varies by package. But there's no annual contract. So if it works out for you, definitely give DirecTV Stream a try. I've been telling you I'm moving. So I'm looking for something to make my TV watching much easier, especially because I, unfortunately, not quite yet, I'm making my way west, but I won't yet be in the same time zone as the Seattle Kraken. So I'm going to have to get a little creative with what I do. But in just a moment here, I'm going to pull up the conversation that I had with the guys over on those Canadian Lads podcast. So it's Brad and Jeff, Edmonton Oilers fans. They have this segment that they call Hockey Chirps. So they're going to be inviting people that represent and talk about or are fans of any of the other 31 clubs in the National Hockey League. And so not only was I think maybe the first guest for Hockey Chirps, they also told me I was the first American, the first guest from the US that has been on their podcast. So I don't know. Can I put that in my bio? Like, do I get a claim to fame now, guys? Jeff, Brad, let me know. Like, do I get a special trophy? I love trophies. But anyway. Hey everyone, Erica Lindsay Ayala, your host here of Locked On Kraken. If you are watching on YouTube, you probably noticed that I wasn't wearing this at the beginning of the video. This guy, my wire, is not being my good friend here. Anyway, so I had to re-record this part of the podcast. So I initially was going to do the jersey unveiling at the end of the show, but I'm going to skip to that now. So you obviously can see the jersey on me now, but I talk through my initial reactions, being able to touch and feel and try on the jersey. So that's coming up next on Locked on Kraken. It's on days like this when I'm having technical difficulties that I'm so glad that I have access to my Built Bars right here in my desk. And Built Bar is the official protein bar of the U.S. track and field team. Built Bar, also a sponsor of us here on Locked on Kraken. And all across the Locked On Podcast Network. And I love it because I can pack my Built Bar. It's anywhere from 130 to 180 calories per bar, all of them wrapped up in chocolate, 4 to 5 grams of net carbs, 4 to 5 grams of sugar, but we're talking 17 to 18 grams protein. That's what we need. We need the energy throughout the day. We're talking flavors that vary from cherry barcia to coconut to some of my personal favorites, salted caramel, and of course, double chocolate. We, though, at Locked On Kraken and across the Locked On Podcast Network, want to make sure that you can also get your fix of Built Bar, whether it's any of the original flavors, some of the specialty flavors that they have, or the mixed box option where you get 2 of each of the original flavors. We want you to head over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. That's once again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And also, we're going to tell you about the amazing BetOnline.ag. Now, I have already worked in some of the BetOnline resources that we have here to get a sense of where people think the Seattle Kraken will fare when it comes to not just the Pacific Division, like what we talked about with Haley Salvian, but what are the Stanley Cup odds? So stay locked on Kraken. We're going to keep talking about those Bet Online odds. But right now, of course, all eyes are focused on the start of football season. Hockey, we're going to get there soon. But everything you need to know from odds, props, contests, betonline.ag has you covered. And you can use your mobile device, your tablet, your laptop, your desktop, whatever you got. And if you sign up today, you will receive a 100% welcome bonus. That's double your initial deposit just for signing up. And don't forget to use that promo code NFL100. And this is for first-time users. But from football to basketball to hockey to boxing and even your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2021 and beyond. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, so make sure you go check them out. Remember, that's BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. So the S on the chest, right there, smack dab in the middle. I love it. This is a pretty massive logo, though. As Scott Brendan talked about, I mean, I can hardly lift it up. Look at that. Look at that. That's all on there. See these little carvings. I talked about it on the podcast before, but to kind of represent the wood carvings of the area. I thought that was pretty cool. That's a sweet logo. Sweet. Pretty good. And yeah, I think that pretty much gets us to where we're at. Oh, we have the look at that. I only have one other jersey that has this. And it's a Blake Bolden jersey. As I understand, this has something to do with for fighting or something. I don't know. Never played ice hockey. Played roller hockey, scored in my first game, and also lost a fingernail. Because I was blocking shots. Let's go. All right. Here we go. Let's see. Okay, so far so good. A little big on the sleeves. Kind of figured that, but I have a secret. For that. It involves rubber bands, in case you don't know. A little big up in here for me, but I'm going to have to press this. This is very weird, but I don't know if you can see it here, but the S is indenting in a weird way. So yeah, a little bit on the big side, but that's kind of how I wanted it. Could definitely fit a hoodie under here. Sleeves a little long, but like I said, I have a hack for that. I usually roll up my sleeves anyway. So, hey, let's go. Let's go. I hope you enjoyed watching me try on the jersey. Now I want to go back to some of the things that I was talking about before when I had some audio issues. But I was saying earlier in the show that today the NHL announced the broadcast schedules for both Turner and ESPN, or I guess technically Walt Disney Company. So Turner Sports has a 50-game telecast schedule for the 2021-22 NHL regular season. That will begin for them on October 13th. They are getting things started with a doubleheader. The New York Rangers at Washington Capitals and the Colorado Avalanche will host the Chicago Blackhawks. So that's their doubleheader for their coverage of 21-22 on TNT. They will have the Winter Classic as well. They have the Tim Hortons Heritage Classic that was announced. That will be Sunday, March 13th. And that's at Tim Hortons Field in Ontario, Hamilton, Ontario. That's going to be an outdoor game featuring the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres. And there's a whole bunch of other highlights. For the purposes of this podcast, I have a list of all of the times the Seattle Kraken will be on TNT. So we start on 11/17. That's November 17th. It's the Chicago Blackhawks at the Seattle Kraken. That's at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Then we have on December 15th, it's the Seattle Kraken at the Anaheim Ducks. We have then, we go forward to March. On March the 2nd, that's a Wednesday, it's the Nashville Predators at Seattle Kraken. We then go to 3/16. March 16th, that is a Wednesday, the Lightning at Seattle Kraken. And then finally, on March 30th, it is the Vegas Golden Knights at Seattle Kraken. So that's the TNT schedule. If you follow Marissa and Jemmy, friend of the pod for sure, she has a list of all of that. But that's what I'm reading to you from the announcement. But most of the games, as far as nationally broadcast NHL games, are going to be part of the Walt Disney Company. They announced 103 exclusive NHL games, which will be across ESPN, ESPN Plus, Hulu, and ABC. That's all starting in October. So they will have a historic doubleheader. So let me show you. I'm going to show you on my screen here so you can see what we are working with. But the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights on October 12th are part of the ESPN doubleheader. Whoa, hello. The first game, excuse me, the first game of that doubleheader, as we can see on this graphic that I'm lining up for you, is, there we go, is the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So that's what we have. But let me go back to the announcement here. You can see the announcement here, NHL face-off, all the goodies, all the great stuff here. But again, for the purposes of this podcast, I have set aside the dates that you need to know. So the game on October 12th against the Las Vegas Golden Knights, that's going to be on ESPN proper. As I understand, and I believe Marissa and Jemmy also tweeted this, but I can show you the lineup here. Everything else will be on ESPN Plus. So you can kind of see here what we got: ESPN Plus Hulu, ESPN Plus Hulu, yada, yada, yada. So the full schedule is out. But I'm not going to make you read the fine print. I have it all written down on my reusable Post-its, actually. I'm very much into reducing the carbon footprint. Reusable Post-its are my favorite thing. Just use a dry erase marker. It's fantastic. Anyway, Seattle Kraken on the Walt Disney Family Company networks. We have on November 9th. That game is the Seattle Kraken versus Vegas at Vegas. We have on the 19th the Colorado Avalanche come to Climate Pledge Arena to take on the Seattle Kraken. Then after that, we get some holiday cheer as the Arizona, almost said Cardinal. That's not correct. It's the Coyotes. I don't know why I almost said the Cardinals. Arizona, and it's not even, I don't know what the heck I'm thinking. It's the Coyotes, excuse me, versus the Seattle Kraken. So that's a home game also at Climate Pledge Arena. At the top of the year for the Seattle Kraken, they will be taking on the New York Islanders, also at home on the ESPN or Walt Disney networks. On 125 ESPN, Hulu, you've got the Nashville Predators and the Seattle Kraken. And then closing out the regular season, we go to 325 as it is Seattle out at Anaheim. So I talked a little bit about my kind of broadcast thoughts a little bit on Locked on Kraken this week. So, in addition to breaking down the schedule for you, also just want to make sure I plug those Canadian Lads podcast. They had me on and we talked a little bit more about the broadcast teams for both TNT and ESPN. We all agreed that we thought ESPN was just having a little more fun with it. And I mentioned earlier on the podcast, Locked on Penguins had some really great insight, also Locked on NHL. If you just want different opinions and how people are feeling, but I think that we're actually going to get some pretty good ESPN coverage. I know everyone's not thrilled, especially because of how things went down with ESPN and the hockey in the past. But also, I'm going to pull it up here while I'm thinking of it. Emily Kaplan, who I talked about with those Canadian lads. But Emily Kaplan and Linda Kahn are going to have they have a new podcast. So here it goes. It's a new hockey podcast. Introducing In the Crease, the ESPN NHL podcast with Linda Kahn and Emily Kaplan. They bring their hockey expertise and passion for the sport, discussing the latest news around the league, as well as interviewing the biggest names both on and off the ice. So I'm waiting on the logo. We don't have a logo yet, Linda and Emily, but I'm excited to check that out. All right. Before we close out the show, remember, go check out those Canadian Lads podcasts. I was honored to be a guest. We had a really good time. I talked a little bit at the top of the show about Media Day. So I saw that Ryan S. Clark, happy Hispanic Heritage Month to Ryan and I. I saw that Ryan S. Clark and Marissa and Jemmy were there with some of the Seattle Kraken folk. Also saw on social media that the Seattle Kraken players were taking some of their media photos. I'm sure we're going to get GIFs and videos and photos and interactions at Climate Pledge Arena, all coming from today. Of course, and I talked about it with those Canadian lads. We talked about the jersey. The jersey reveal. Look at these anchors away. I always keep my anchors pretty close. Love those earrings. I mentioned it. I think it still made it because I had to redo this part of the podcast. But I got those earrings for a Halloween costume that I was doing. I was being Uma from, what is it, The Descendants, right? Speaking of Walt Disney, from The Descendants, she's the child of Ursula. So that was a lot of fun. What's my name? What's my name? Uma. As a matter of fact, that's probably why I love the Kraken jersey so much, because her color motif was, she had a lot of these deep sea blues. So that was a lot of fun. Anyway, I might have to pull out the hat that I got for that costume. And then I popped my leather jacket on. Good times. Anyway, I think we're about done here, folks. We're going to close out this episode, but I've already closed out this episode, so I'm going to take you to the end of episode that I recorded earlier. I'm hoping that my microphone didn't disconnect for too long there, and if it did, then you'll hear me come back and do it all over again. Thank you, as always, for listening or now watching Locked on Kraken. Once we go to 5 days a week, we will definitely be integrated on YouTube a lot more. So if you're not already following me, that's where you can find me, at elindsay08. Again, that's ELINDSAY. And if you're not already following the show, go ahead and do that. As soon as I get back to the Pacific Northwest, I'll be doing a lot more on social media, in addition to whatever is on the podcast. So that's going to do it for today's show. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. And then it's just a countdown to the official start of training camp. Until next time, folks, this is your host, wishing you well, thanking you so much for listening on your commute, wherever you're going, or maybe you're walking your dog, you're watching your children, you're at work. I know some people listen while they're at work, so thank you for that. And I hope I do make you laugh, but not to the point where you get in any trouble. Either way, thank you so much. This has been your host, Erica Lindsay Ayala, and I will be signing out. Betting on the Seattle Kraken and the National Hockey League doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the Locked on Bets podcast, hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. On this podcast, we're talking daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favored picks, and of course, Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow Locked on Bets podcast, brought to you by BetOnline.ag, wherever you get podcasts.